Please welcome Mr. Vincent Lo.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to come and speak, but unfortunately, we've all been just given 10 minutes. And just now, actually, Cher did not share with you her exciting stories. She actually started a business by using the flat that her mother gave her as her marriage present to mortgage for the startup money. And then also, she went with a bodyguard to chase after a delinquent customer in South America and stayed there for 6 months to chase after her money. That's called passion. I started my business with a loan of 100,000 Hong Kong dollars from my father in '71. I started as a small contractor. My business grew, but in '85, I made a very important decision because I decided that I wanted to stay in Hong Kong after 1997. That's the first thing. And the second thing is I thought I want to do more in my business, but Hong Kong is so small, only a few million people, and it's so dominated by the big businesses. So what could I do? Maybe I should go and look at China, the mainland. But at that time, a lot of you are too young to know that China just started the open and reform program, and very few people had faith in that opening up. And so a lot of Hong Kong people, because of the 1997 issue, were immigrating from Hong Kong. But because I wanted to stay in Hong Kong, so I thought, okay, I will go to China and make my investment there to learn firsthand what is happening in the country. And I started my investment into a small hotel in Shanghai with the Communist Youth League. But that was a very important decision for me because, first of all, I was one of the first movers to go into the Chinese mainland. So although my business was small, but at least I have a head start. And then I developed very strong relations and trust with the Communist Youth League, who will later become very senior officials. So in 1996, the Shanghai government approached me and said, "Oh, Mr. Lo, we have a piece of land in the heart of Shanghai. It's very centrally located, the red dot there, and we would like you to help us to plan for this piece of land." They never mentioned that they wanted me to take part in the development of this parcel. And I thought, well, property is all about location. And with this central location, maybe I should help them plan for facilities and infrastructure that will cater to the needs of Shanghai in the 21st century. I was at that time quite actively involved with the Shanghai government in helping them plan the development of the city. And I knew that Shanghai had wanted to become an international business center. But in the 1990s, Shanghai didn't have any of the facilities you're seeing today. And also, the property market at that time was in a very depressed state because you might remember, some of you might remember, in the early 90s, China had runaway inflation. And the then Premier Zhu Rongji, he introduced very stringent measures to curb inflation. And of course, property was the first sector that got hit very bad. And so the market very depressed. But I thought, well, if I could help the government plan on this piece of land, then maybe in the future, when they decide to go for redevelopment, I might have the opportunity to take a small parcel and develop something there. So I engaged SOM, an international master planning company, to help me do the plans for the government with no commitment from government for development. And I introduced very new ideas like having that man-made lake in the middle there. For those of you who have visited Shanghai in the last few years, you could see that man-made lake there. But what's more important is that this plan, when it was presented to the mayor and the government officials, they love it. And so they said, "Oh, Mr. Lo, would you like to redevelop this land with us?" And I hesitated for about 3 seconds, and I said, okay. But this is the first Congress Hall of the Communist Party. It's located in this 52 hectares of land that I have agreed to redevelop with the government. And for most developers, if you were starting on a development of this size, and when the market is not so good, you would start with residential. But I've decided to do something different because of this first Congress Hall, and also, that was in 97. I knew that in 2001, there were two important dates in Shanghai. The APEC meeting was going to be hosted in October. And then also, the Communist Party 80th anniversary would be on 1st of July, sorry. And I knew that all the leaders would be coming down to the first Congress Hall. So I thought, well, since this site is within my site boundary, I should try and do something with this area. And because of this first Congress Hall, the neighborhood would have to be preserved. And these are some of the old houses that I found on site. So you can see they're really quite dilapidated. So what could I do with this piece of land there? 3 hectares. But I've decided that, okay, Stonegate housing is something that's unique to Shanghai. Over half of the Shanghainese have lived in the Stonegate housing one time or another. But because of the opening up and reforms, all these buildings have been torn down. None have been preserved. But you would be asking, what could you do with all these rundown houses and try and make it economically feasible? I had a crazy idea. I thought, okay, maybe I should just preserve the facade and renovate the interior and turn it into something that will be conducive for people to want to spend their time. So I had that idea, but nobody knew what I was talking about. And then in 1997, there was the Asian currency crisis. So I went to the banks and said, okay, I have this brilliant idea. Why don't you help fund me? I need about 175 million US only. The banks were very polite. They didn't say no to me, but they didn't give me an answer. But I have to start work immediately, otherwise I would never be able to finish on time for the 80th anniversary or the APEC. So I've decided that, okay, I'll come up with my own money. So I was talking to my colleagues, my staff, my finance director. They all thought I was crazy. I'm sure they were looking for jobs, but unfortunately the market wasn't that good. And I only asked my finance director one question. I said, okay, we're going to fund this project ourselves. If this would not work, am I going to go bankrupt? Luckily, I had 100% share of the company at that time. And he said, well, you will manage, you will survive, but you wouldn't be too happy. I said, doesn't matter, let's go and do it then. So I knew, okay, to try and do something like that, I would need people who has experience in this. So I have to try and source for an architect to do the design for me. But there wasn't anybody in Hong Kong or China who had that sort of experience. And I did not know Mr. Benwood. He was involved with Faneuil Hall in Boston, which I like quite a lot. So I wrote him a letter and said, why don't you come to Shanghai? And we have this exciting project that I want you to take a look at. And Mr. Wood at that time has never stepped foot on China. But he was game enough to come and see me. And after talking to him for half an hour, I knew he was the man I wanted for the job. And I also make a very big statement to him. I said, Ben, we're going to work on this together. It's going to change your life. He did not believe me. But now he's been living in Shanghai ever since that job. So what we wanted to do is actually, I coined a phrase to try and represent what we want to do with the project. I call it yesterday, today, yesterday, tomorrow, meeting today. Chinese is 昨天明天上会在今天. And I was trying to convey the message of what we really want to create for this project. And fortunately, I was actively involved into every step of the redevelopment, and we made it on time. And after we opened, as you can see here, the before and after, we really, I think, did quite a big miracle on this job. And it's now a new landmark for Shanghai. It's a must visit, so I hope you will go and see it, and I hope you like it. But what is important with this project for my company is that it's propelled Shui On to the forefront of the property business in China. And a lot of other cities have invited us to go and do a similar project. But I'm very cautious on this because I don't want to replicate. I don't want my projects to be like a Jollibee. Sorry, Tony. I want every project to have its own character. So we're only doing 4 other Xintiandis inside China at this point. Wuhan, Chongqing, Foshan. And every city, I want to try and preserve the architecture and the culture. So I really want to end my story in saying that as an entrepreneur, you have to learn to create opportunities for yourself. And you have to really grab hold of that opportunity when it calls on you. And like Cher said, you have to do it with passion. Thank you very much.